One Phillip Islander from Rhyl, who had a totally different experience of war service, was Malcolm McFee, son of Stan McFee Sr. and Isabel May McFee. Malcolm lived and farmed with his family at Long Point, south of Rhyl. They had worked horses there for years. Malcolm was a born horseman who never raised a finger or his voice to a horse in his whole life. By World War II, the once famous and revered Australian Light Horse regiments had mostly been disbanded or converted to other types of service, such as tanks. Exceptions were the hastily formed mounted 30-member section of the 6th Divisional Cavalry Regiment, who made history by converting from tanks to horses during the Syrian campaign. They were known as the Kelly Gang and included a radio operator, a cook and a gunner. The Kelly Gang used well-trained cavalry horses captured from the Vichy French, or Arab breed horses acquired locally. They mainly patrolled in otherwise inaccessible Syrian terrain, collecting intelligence on enemy positions. In the New Guinea campaign, the Independent Light Horse Troop did patrol duty and carried supplies where trucks or porters could not manage. In Australia, officials thought a well-trained light horse militia with experienced horsemen such as Malcolm could be useful for search and rescue and patrol on home soil.
Well, I was on the farm at home, of course, and things were looking pretty crook. And I was always a keen horseman, so I thought I'd join the Light Horse. The headquarters were at Berwick at that stage. I had to go to Berwick, of course, and get interviewed and medical, all the rest of it. And I was accepted, and there I was. We weren't in camp permanently at that stage. We were more or less a militia force that we had training sessions. And I think it was once a month we had a training session. And then when the Japs come into the war, of course, we were all called up. A lot of the training was like the infantry training when we weren't using the horses, but when we were using the horses it was drilling in sections of 4. There'd be or there might be 4, there'd be 48 in a section, and that'd be 4, one behind the other, manoeuvring. If you've ever seen the police musical ride, it'd be something on similar lines to that. And a lot of the time, of course, it wasn't training, it was just looking after horses and feeding and so forth. The horses were all in what they called horse lines. They were tied to a long rope, and their heads were tied to that, and the one back leg was tied to another long rope at the back so as they couldn't swing around and kick each other. And of course there was always horses that were hurt and injured, and I was in the remount section, and a lot of the work was helping the vets with sick horses, exercising with the various horses that were fit to exercise that hadn't been worked for a while, and exercising young horses that had just come into the horse lines, that were new to the business, exercising and training them, and a lot of that sort of thing, shoeing, looking after their feet. There was a lot of interesting work, as you can imagine, in that. Then we'd go on perhaps a 3 or 4 day bivouac on with the horses and camp out for 4 days. I remember one trip we got caught in 3 days it rained, never stopped. And you can imagine that was pretty unpleasant. And I think one night we managed to camp in a hay shed on some property, but apart from that we were out in the wet all the time. Well, that was an exercise that everybody was glad to see finished. That was down in the Western District.
Phillip Islanders who attended the Bicentennial Street Parade in 1988 in Cowes may well remember Malcolm mounted on Rebel as they calmly walked down the main street among bands, trucks, clapping crowds, honking horns, revving cars and motorbikes, sometimes having to halt and stand still for several minutes. The image of Malcolm sitting deep in the saddle, totally relaxed, with Rebel on a fairly loose rein, alert but calmly looking around, has certainly stayed in many onlookers' minds.